Evening. New tonight, the Sioux City City Council has started the process of expanding the distance that city employees can live outside of city limits.
Right now, the limit is just 10 miles, but tonight the council approved the first reading of an ordinance change that would allow city staff to live up to 30 miles outside of Sioux City. Last month, the council considered a 50-mile limit if the employee lived in Iowa. If the employee worked in Nebraska or South Dakota, the limit was 30 miles. Mayor Bob Scott voted no on tonight's first reading of the ordinance change. He has concerns about police, fire, and paramedic personnel living up to 30 miles away from Sioux City. Scott says he wants the public to have a chance to break and speak at the second and third readings of the ordinance change.
The last time this came up, we did have people email us on this about why they didn't think it was right. So I want to at least have the public have an opportunity to have some input.
In documents presented to the City Council, City Manager Bob Padmore said research of past applicants showed the current city residency requirement was a reason they declined city employment. Scott said he's not convinced the residency requirement